Good Sunday evening, afternoon. I guess it's technically evening everywhere, but at least on this side of the time divide. So, today we're going to be talking about the other side of what we talked about yesterday, which was how to please a woman spiritually. Today we're going to be talking about how to please a man. So, just to make sure, if you're watching this expecting some kind of tutorial and in some kind of less than G-rated scenario, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We're talking about from a shamanic perspective, energetically speaking, spiritually speaking, what is really happening between the male and female connection there. So what we are going to be talking about is how to connect with your man. And so first let me address the title, How to Please a Man. It sounds very misogynistic. And the reason why I chose that title for this video is because, as I talked about yesterday, I was writing a book about how to communicate with a man. And I was writing my experience of, the challenges that men and women have in relationships. And so I was sharing from my own personal experience, but I was also sharing from a spiritual experience, a shamanic experience, what the feminine nature wants, what the masculine nature wants. And as I was doing research for the title of that book, I wanted to see what the most popular search term was for that kind of a book. And what came up was that the most popular search term for relationship books was How to Please a Man. And I was, whoa, what is going on with that? That sounds really sexist. Why would a woman put themselves in that kind of a scenario? I'm sitting here thinking, because they complain about men and men don't communicate, and I'm thinking that would be the first thing in the search term results would be how to communicate with a man, how to understand a man. No, how to please a man. And so I wasn't going to go that far. The second most popular search term was how to keep a man. So that's what I called the book, How to Keep a Man. If you want to read the book, you can go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. Let me get that up here. You can go here to michaelwilliamdenny.com and you can find that book there. And that will talk to you about how men communicate, what they're really trying to say, what they really want, what their limitations are, and some of the usual problems that come up in that kind of scenario. So hang on one second here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put up a list of what it is that the masculine is energetically seeking. These are just some of the things. This isn't everything, but these are some of the things on an energetic level. Men may not consciously know this is what they want, but this is energetically what the masculine seeks from the feminine. Again, we're talking in generality. So take a look at that. Okay, I had to close my window. I have my my air conditioning on and I had the window open at the same time. So how's that for not paying attention? Most men pay a lot of attention to things like closed doors and lights that are on, but apparently I wasn't in my masculine mind at the moment. Okay, so you saw the first one there. Let me see if I can see it here. So, as we saw yesterday, first thing that the feminine seeks, or the masculine that the feminine seeks from the masculine is strength. So the first thing that the masculine seeks from the feminine is power. So what is feminine power? When we think of the words power and strength, it's easy to think of men, power lifters, right? But power is something else. Strength is the ability to withstand stress, right? Strength, to be able to lift a heavy weight. It takes strength to do that. But it takes power to run the electricity of an office building. It doesn't take strength. Strength will keep it up, but strength will not power it. You need power. Men, energetically speaking, are sources of strength. They're not sources of power. So this is the first thing that a man is looking for from a woman. Now, how does that translate? What does that translate into? Because we're going to be talking about that when we're dealing with the truth, the underlying truth of the masculine and feminine, and the external, visual, superficial, looks of things. We're talking about opposites. Because even though men like to power lift, right? They go to the gym and they like to lift a lot of heavy weights, and they do play football and all these things that supposedly take power. The truth is that men lack power, and they seek power from their feminine counterpart. This is why alpha males tend to be very sexually prolific. This is why when you've got an alpha male, they are more likely to have multiple partners or cheat and all that. And I'm not judging it one way or the other, nor am I defending it. I'm just telling you the fact. It's because they are alpha, what they seek is power. Because they are trying to be the king, dominating their environment. They have to have power to do that. So that's why you see those guys with a lot of women. Or their desire for it. And again, we're talking generally speaking here. Women have that power, and I can tell you, ladies, that when a man, I don't care how alpha he is in his dating life, when he meets that one Shakti, that one woman that has the power that he needs, he will forget about all the rest of them. That's when a man commits. So, if you're dating a guy and he, like many guys, doesn't want to commit, one of the reasons may be that he is either afraid of your power, because that's a real thing too. In order for him to accept your power, that means he has to let his guard down in order to let that power in. So he may be afraid of your power, or he may not think that you have power, or that he's not getting power from you. This is what sex is about. Sex is about men getting empowered. While I'm on the subject, let me share something very interesting with you about cheating. Now, when it comes to cheating, I'm going to tell you something about men which you might find difficult to believe. Men typically cheat in order to stay in a relationship. Women cheat in order to leave a relationship. They're looking for some guy to come along that they can grab onto, who will pull them out of that relationship. Now, they may or may not stay with him. Who knows? I find it interesting that the movie Eat, Pray, Love, I don't even know anything about it, but it was, I think it was having something to do with about a woman leaving, a bad relationship and go and be yourself and experience yourself, all of which I agree with. And it turns around later that, she was leaving people that she was with, jumping around from person to person. I find that a little interesting. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. Forgive my verbal diarrhea there. So when a man cheats, he's seeking to stay in the relationship. And when a woman cheats, she's seeking to get out of the relationship. And again, guys will say, "Oh, well, she doesn't, we don't have enough sex." What that means is that he's not getting the power from her, because that's where he gets it. He gets it that's what men are looking for initially. They're looking for power, and men don't have power in themselves. And another practical application of that power is for him to go out and be his best self, to go and work that job, become president, whatever it is that he wants to do, whatever he wants to make his mark in the world, he needs power to do that. And that's why he seeks out his that's why men, when they're in love, they say, with you, I can do anything. It's because she's providing the power for him. We talked about yesterday what he provides for her is the strength and the direction, which is why women are always saying, I want a guy who doesn't live in his mom's basement. He has to know what he's doing. He has to have his own job. He has to have a clear direction. I mean, all you have to do is look on dating websites, and you'll see that profile after profile, that's one of the main things that comes up women are looking for in a guy. Because women are looking to be inspired. If a man has his direction and he has his strength and he has his integrity, that the feminine is inspired by that. And then she is inspired to give him power. So we'll talk more about some of those other things. Let's see, I have another thing here, another outline here. So I talked about why I call the title of this, How to Please a Man. Because this is a projection. So remember I said earlier that the most popular search term from a woman's perspective about books about men is How to Please a Man, and how I found that so strange and so sexist. And like I couldn't even bring myself to title a book like that. It was too sexist for me in my mind. But that's telling you the projection. We project what we want. So women want to be pleased. And so we talked about a lot of those things yesterday. So what is the most popular title of a book for men? Or when men are going onto the internet and they're typing something about women, what is the first thing that comes up? It's not How to Please a Woman, How to Make a Woman Happy, how to, whatever. The first thing and the most popular search term by far is how to get a woman. So again, this is a projection. We all think from our perspective. A man's perspective is how to get a woman. What does that tell you? Well, of course, that's the obvious thing. Men in their most chauvinistic side, they're out to conquer and get a woman. But it also reveals what his fantasy is. He wants to be gotten, which means that he wants to be seduced. So even though, again, on the surface, when we're talking about the energies of male and female, we're talking about opposites. And what is really going on under the surface is usually the opposite of what it looks like is happening. So on the surface, we have the guy chases after the woman, and he asks her out, and then he pays for everything. And so he's pursuing her, he's chasing her like she's prey, But what's really happening is that he is, if the energies are working according to the spiritual principles, he's being seduced. And you listen to your own reaction to that when I say that. When I say to you that the job of the feminine is to seduce the masculine to pursue her, what is your reaction to that? Do you find that to be sexist? Do you think I'm being a typical misogynistic male? I'm not. I'm sitting here telling you from an energetic perspective and from my own personal experience, women have all the power. That's what men are seeking. They're seeking power. So, and again, I'm not talking about men who are abusive or men who, do anything abusive to anybody, especially women. These are men who are so insecure, so incredibly weak and insecure that the only way that they can feel like they can get their power back is by being abusive and dominating. And of course, in that scenario, they've only got a victim. They don't have a willing participant. And of course, that's not what we're talking about. So we see this idea of the feminine has to seduce the masculine in order for there to be a relationship. We see this in the Vedic, and I'm sure many other places, the Vedic mythological lore. And we have Shiva. So Shiva is the ultimate masculine. And Shiva sits at the top of the mountain and he's deep in meditation. He's meditating, and his only desire is to connect with infinity. That's his only desire. So what happens, and again, we're talking generalities, so just be clear. I'm talking about generalities. Every person is a mixture of masculine and feminine, regardless of their sexual orientation or of their, their physical sex. We're talking about archetypes here. So he's the ultimate masculine, and the ultimate masculine wants to connect with infinity. It does not want to be held down into physical reality, wants to connect completely with the spirit. The feminine, on the other hand, the feminine energy wants to create. And in order to create, the feminine must be, this is why we call her Mother Earth. We don't call it Father Earth, because Earth is the manifestation, the plane of manifestation, of physical manifestation. I want to make a point here about something. I know it's popular, and it has been for 2,000 years, starting with the Gnostics. If anybody out there listening to me is a Gnostic or thinks that Gnosticism is the true Christianity or that Gnosticism is some kind of wisdom, I'm here to tell you that Gnosticism is based out of. The basis of Gnosticism was a reaction to the hopelessness of empires. Empires were just really coming into their power with the Greek and then the Roman Empire. And the world was beginning to lose hope because of the oppression that was coming on that. So that was symbolized by the manifest earth, your physical life. And so people wanted to escape that into the spiritual, and so they would make this distinction between the demiurge and the true spirit, and then the lower vibrations. And people still talk like that. I've heard people do that all the time. Oh, I want to get out of my lower vibrations and get up into my higher chakras. This is coming from a place of weakness. There is, the totality of existence is a mixture of the lower vibration and the higher vibration, that which is manifest and that which is unmanifest. So let's get rid of that nonsense. So as I'm talking about the feminine being the lower vibration manifestive energy that wants to manifest and create, I am not in any way saying anything derogatory about that. And if I am talking this way and you feel that I'm being derogatory to the feminine, that's on you. You've either been programmed to believe this, this nonsense that's been going on for 2,000 years about Gnosticism and the higher vibration and the lower vibration and all that crap. Or you have shame about your lower vibrations. We see this in the way that sex is portrayed in religion. Religion sees sex as whatever, negative, and get out of your negative and go into your higher. This is why there's now this embrace of what's called tantric sex, which of course there is no such thing as tantric sex, by the way. That's a completely made up, nonsensical thing that was made up in the West. Tantra has nothing to do with sex, but that's another discussion. Tantric sex is a reaction to that and looking to make sex and sexual relations once again, to make them spiritual. And it truly is. On an energetic and a shamanic level, the physical union, when done in connection to spiritual energy, is the highest form of intimacy that we can have. And we have chosen to become physical beings for, among other reasons, so we can do that. So we can lose ourselves in the infinite through connecting with another person, and we get to do it together. And then while we do that, we also connect to each other on a very deep, intimate level. So anyway, I kind of got off, as I am wont to do. I got off on a side tangent there. So getting back to what I was saying earlier, so the most popular search term that women, when they're trying to figure out how to connect to their men, they say how to please a man. That's because that's coming from their projection, because that's what they want. They want their men to please them. And so we do that. We just narcissistically project what we want on other people. This is part of the reason why we don't communicate very well. Most popular search term for men when it comes to creating a relationship is how to get a woman, which means their projection unconsciously is that they want to be seduced. So this is the power of the feminine, and again, going back to the lore of Shiva and Shakti. Shiva sits on the top of the mountain, which represents the highest crown chakra, and he is connected fully to the infinite, and that's all he cares about. He does not care about relationships. He does not care about sex. He does not care about having children. He does not care about what's going on down underneath the mountain. He's only caring about how he can become infinite. That's all that matters to him. And he's deep in his meditation, and nothing can stir him from his meditation. And Shakti, Parvati, the feminine. Parvati means the son of the mountain or something like that. Or excuse me, the daughter of the mountain or something. And she dreams about him in her dreams, meaning on her spiritual level. This is important, guys. There's a lesson here about women. What turns a woman on starts in the imagination. It starts in the dream world. For us, it's the physical. That's the first thing that gets us aroused. Is, and women, you're right. Men do objectify women. That's just part of the, again, that's why the woman fantasy is the chick flick of 50 Shades of Grey, and there's all the kinds of nonsense that us men don't understand. I thought this was a movie about sex. We don't get, what is this, all this other stuff going on? And when men are stimulated, they're stimulated. Their objectification of women is usually physical. But getting back to women, so she is in love with this man she sees in her dreams. And she can see him in her dreams on the mountaintop meditating. And what excites her is that he is connected to the infinite. This is exciting to her, and she feels this longing. She can't live without it. So the feminine can't live without that part of it. So she goes to the top of the mountain. She finds out that he exists in reality, and he is meditating on the top of this mountain in the Himalayas. And so she climbs to the top of the mountain, and she tries to talk to him. He doesn't respond. She tries to meditate with him. Doesn't respond. She tries everything, throw rocks at him, whatever. Nothing shakes him out of his self. So this is, again, women find men very selfish. It's true. Because he is wrapped up in his self-awareness. Big S. His big self-awareness. And so she tries to bring him out of that. In order to do that, she brings the god of, the Cupid version, the Vedic version of Cupid, the god of lust. And as a result of that, and I can't remember the specifics, as a result of that, Shiva is woken out of his meditation, his peace, and he feels uncomfortable now. And who has woken him out of his meditation? He opens up his third eye and he kills the god of lust. And she says, please, 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 no, I did it. I can't live without you. And she's crying. And the honesty and, the vulnerability is what makes him fall in love with her. And, he honors her request and brings back the god of lust. Because without it, the world wouldn't function. And then that starts the relationship, which is creation. And that is a symbol for the creation, the yin and the yang coming together, and that explosion creates the universe. So the feminine has a very strong desire to be in the physical. But its genesis is in the spiritual. What turns her on sexually about Shiva is what she saw in her dreams. That's why when you hear the man of my dreams, women actually mean that. Men say, the woman of my dreams, they mean the woman of my, my fantasy, my immediate objectification fantasy. But when women say the man of my dreams, they mean it. Now that's how the play goes. So she has to seduce him into wanting to then chase after her. So on the surface level, it looks as though he is chasing after her and it was his idea. And he thinks it's his idea. He thinks he walked into the bar and saw her and went, wow, she is beautiful. I want to get her number. But on an energetic level, even if they've never met before on the physical, it was her energy that has been pulling him to her this whole time. So the takeaway from this, women, since this is about how to please a man, which is really about how to get a man, it is your job to energetically seduce him. Because you are right, men are selfish. On the, quote, lower vibrational level, men are obsessed with their toys or sports. I personally don't get that. Team sports, why the hell do you get bent out of shape over a bunch of guys who are getting paid a lot of money who do not live in your hometown? They come from somewhere else. And you're gonna, people get into fights and they get riots over their team losing. And it's a bunch of guys who are paid and they come from other countries and other cities. Silliest thing. It's one of the silliest. If we put 1/10 of the energy into solving, pick any of your problem, whatever problem it is, global warming or starvation or immigration, I don't care what your pet peeve is, if we put 1/10 of the effort into that we do into the Super Bowl every year, we would solve every problem in the universe. So you're right, women. Men are selfish. On the spiritual level, if they are evolved, they're going to be selfish in a big S sense. So they will be altruistic, but it will come from their selfishness, their desire to connect to their big self. Not their little self, but their big self, like Shiva. And that's why women seek out those kind of men. So let me see, I'm getting kind of lost here. There was something that I wanted to say. I'm hoping it'll come up again soon. Anyway, there's other things I want to talk about, like the legend of Ganesha. That shares a lot about what's going on. But we are here to talk about men, not about women. Men are selfish. What men want is to experience the world. Now, again, I'm talking generally speaking. You may be different. What women want is to experience relationship. You know what? And I'll show you how this manifests itself in something very mundane. Now, correct me if you think I'm wrong. I've seen this, been on this planet a few decades. Here's what I see. When men park into their garage or into their driveway, they will spend an extra 5 minutes getting their car set up so they can back it into the driveway. Why is that? Because they're thinking ahead about when they're going to get in their car and get the hell out of home and go out into the world and explore the world. That's their makeup, is to go explore. What do women do when they park into the driveway? All the time. It'll be head in because they're all about getting home. They want to get home. They want to create the home. And that's why you have that. Why can't, you spend more time at home? Why are you always out doing the whatever, whatever? Women want to go out, but they want to go out with their man. They want to have that experience of relationship out in the world. When men want to have their experience of relationship, they want to come home. They want to take off their shoes and they want to put their briefcase down and lie on the couch and watch television, and that's what they want. And then they may want to make love and talk to the wife and have her take care of him. And I'm sorry to say, but that's what men are looking for. We'll talk about that. So let's move on to the next list. I've got two lists I'm looking at here. Let me look at the next one. So the first thing that the masculine is seeking from the feminine, as we talked about already, is power. So let's see what I put second here. Okay, so I was starting to talk about this. Men are little boys. Sorry, but they are. They are little boys, and they want to be nurtured. So this causes a problem because what is attractive to the feminine is when the man is strong and self-sufficient, like Shiva. Shiva needs no nurturing. In fact, I'll share this with you. This was an interesting thing. This has happened at least twice that I can remember. This first time was probably 5 years ago, right after my divorce, and I was back into the single dating world and going on to dating websites. And I had a brief communication with somebody, and she said, and I was coming from the perspective of, here's all the things that I do, and I'm, like I said, the masculine, if it's empowered, it's it's self-dependent and it's self-generating, and that's an attractive thing. It's some guy that has direction and knows what he likes and doesn't need somebody else to make themselves happy. I'm thinking that's an attractive thing. And I'm talking to this woman very briefly, and one of the things that she says is, see if I can remember what she said. She said something to the effect of, yeah, you seem so independent, I don't think that you would need me. And I didn't respond. I just said, okay, well, it looks like we're not a match. But, because at that point, there's just no point in talking about it. But what I wanted to say to her is, well, why the hell do you want to be with a guy that needs you? How can that work out well? You mean in order to be okay, he needs you in order to be okay? That sounds really, what kind of a man is that? That sounds really weak. Now, of course, I do understand that everybody wants to feel needed and loved, so that's not what I'm saying. But just recently, again, somebody else I was talking to, and 2 or 3 communications over Match.com or whatever it was, and I said, well, it sounds like we have some things in common. Here's my number. Give me a call if you ever want to get together and meet for tea or coffee or something. She wrote back, she spent a couple of days, and then she wrote back and she said, I'm probably not going to call or text. And I didn't say I wanted her to text me. I said I wanted her to call me. She said, I'm not going to call or text because, let me see if I can remember what she said, because it was really, really telling. Her words were something to the effect of, because you seem to be naturally at your best right now. And I went, what? And I sat with that for a couple of days, and of course my first inclination was to do what I always do, which is if there's no future, I don't want to waste my time. So I was just going to forget about it. But the curiosity overcame me, and I had to know more. And my hope was that she would be able to explain where she was coming from. Of course, she wasn't able to, because as you can tell from that is an unconscious. That was her unconscious saying, that she wasn't ready for something at whatever level she thought I was going to bring. So I wrote her back and I said, thank you for responding. I really appreciate it, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but could you please do me a favor and help me understand what that means? Wouldn't you want a man who's at his best? Or are you saying that you think that I wouldn't have anything within me to give to you, or that there wouldn't be any space in me to be in a relationship with you? And she wrote back and she said, oh my God, I feel so stupid. Of course I want a man who's at his best. And she didn't. And I tried one more time to say, yeah, but please try to help me explain. And she couldn't. So obviously my experience is that's somebody who's very unconscious and doesn't believe she deserves the best. Remember, everything is a projection. So if she's saying, I don't want to connect with you because I see that you're at your best, it means that she doesn't believe she deserves the best, obviously. But that those two reactions show something, which is that men need to be nurtured. And so the feminine is going to want to nurture. Now unless we're talking about a child, unless we're talking about the fruit of your womb, ladies, because that is different. Something that comes out of your womb, you are going to want to love that unconditionally. Your natural state is to love that without any conditions. That's the only time it'll ever happen in this universe. Get over it, everybody. In any other situation, it's always conditional. So, when people say, I just want to be loved for who I am, nobody ever does that unless it's your child. You love your child for who they are if you are a healthy individual. We talked about that yesterday, about what the true meaning of the Madonna and the Christ is. That she has no agenda and she reflects back to the child that child's true essence. And that's what allows the child to be imprinted and become healthy and self-sufficient. Most of us are not perfect, so not all mothers have that ability. But that's the only time it'll ever happen. But this is what men are seeking. They're seeking to be nurtured in that same general way. And, give you another example. There was a guy that I knew in my 20s when we were all just full of testosterone and just, typical, young males full of testosterone. And this guy was a serious tough guy. This was one of those just major serious tough guys that when he walked down the street, you did not mess with him, and he didn't have time for relationships or women, and he just used them and threw them away and all that. And there was one woman that volunteered to be that for him, and so there was always this drama about, she would spend the night with him, and then the next day he would say, we don't have a relationship, I didn't force you to come here, and oh, why doesn't he love me? And she would say, because sometimes we would, and he didn't care. He honestly didn't care. Sometimes some of us guys would say to her, why do you do that to yourself? He's not interested in a relationship. Why do you keep throwing yourself at him like that? And she says, you don't understand. When we're alone, I see the real him. I see who he truly is. And nope, he threw that away. He didn't want any of that. What she's saying is that even though he is in a lifestyle where he's chosen to be a single playboy or whatever it is, he doesn't want to get tied down to a relationship. He doesn't need a woman. That when the doors were closed and they're having the pillow talk, guess what? His little boy would come out and he would want to be nurtured. Now that's the problem. She would nurture him and he'd get what he needed, and then the next day he would say, get out. If she was smart, she would have tried to seduce him to chase after her. So that then, after he's earned it, she can give that to him, and then he'll want to stay. But because she was so quickly wanting to nurture him, there was nothing in it for him to stay. So what I'm trying to focus on here is the men. Men need to be nurtured. This is their essence. They're little boys. Men always go after their mothers. So remember what I said about the Madonna and the child. That what the Madonna is doing is that she, without any expectation, without any agenda, without any conditions. She reflects back to the child's true essence, true being, and from that the child is imprinted with not the mother's expectations, but with what the universe has given them. She is this mirror that only reflects love and nothing else. And in that love, that child sees him or herself, and then is able to go on and experience and get the most out of life. This is what men are looking for in relationships. Remember I said in the beginning that what men are looking for is power. The power to go and do and win and create and be and explore. Remember I said that what men are seeking in life is to explore the infinite, and what the feminine is seeking to create is to create relationship, which signifies the home. So I kind of got lost in that. There was something else I wanted to say. I'm trying to remember what it is. Trying to navigate in my brain all of the potential bombs that could go off if I say the wrong thing in the wrong way. My fear that women are going to get upset and think that I'm treating them as objects. And that comes from a lack of understanding in our society. I mean, not that people are that way, but that I have that fear. Because there is a real problem when it comes to communicating about what the true feminine is and what the true masculine is. We have some very serious misunderstandings about that. And if you can understand what I'm saying, I am saying that the feminine is the most powerful. Maybe this is just coming from me because I'm a man. And so my masculinity wants to see the ultimate in the feminine, because without the feminine, I have no power. Can't do anything. Here's the thing, men cannot do anything in and of themselves. I can hear the women right now laughing and chuckling and saying, that's right. It's true. Men can't do anything in and of themselves unless they have the power of the feminine in them. Unless they've been empowered by the feminine, they can accomplish nothing. Can't do anything. So, I'm going to go ahead and take a break here, and if you want to ask me a question about this, I'd be happy to. Let's try and keep it focused on the masculine and the feminine. If you want to communicate with me on this live Q&A, please write a question and preface it with the word question, so that I know that you're asking me a question. If I don't see that, there's a chance I might not read your statement or whatever else. So make sure that I see that you're asking me a question, and then I'll do my best to help you. So give me a couple minutes and I'll be right back. So if you noticed in the pictures there that I had, except for the first one, except for this first one here. That first one there, you see that the guy is the one getting kissed and he's looking towards the camera. But the rest of them, you notice that the man is seeking to show appreciation to the woman, and she's giving this knowing look to the camera. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because that when a man is receiving what it is he wants from the feminine, that's how he's going to respond to that. His response will be to give. That's why men want to give wedding rings, and they want to give jewels, and they want to give flowers. That is a sign that he is getting what he wants. And his response to that is to give to her. Now, I am well aware that women are extremely giving and nurturing. That is their essence as well. But again, if you're looking at the stereotype of what we see, when a woman has decided she's getting what she wants, what do you see? You see her with her head back in a blissful, she's opening herself up to him. She gives of herself to him and allows him in, right? So anyway, that's just neither here nor there. So let's see if there are any questions. I get kind of scared. You guys, I guess, are listening to me because I say, don't write anything unless you're going to ask a question. And then now you look on, there's almost nothing there. So we have two questions here. First one is question: can you talk about Sidr and Galdr in relation to feminine and masculine energy? If you're not familiar with those terms, I am a spiritual practitioner of my ethnic heritage, which is Norse. And so there were two extreme types of spiritual practitioners in pre-Christian Norse culture. And one was those that practiced Sidr and those that practiced Galdr. In English, it would be the term seethe, to boil. And these were practiced by typically by women, and it was the staff carrier women. They're called the vulva, but they were staff carriers. It means the staff carrier. Staff carrier is somebody who carries the man's power. And what I find is that that's very interesting because in most other traditions, you see the man, the chief, the wizard is holding the staff. The staff represents exactly what it looks like, the phallic symbol, the strength of the authority of the male. But I find it interesting that in the Germanic tradition, it was the women. Now, the women weren't holding their authority, they were holding the authority of the masculine, which meant that the masculine part of that tribe had entrusted itself to the power of the feminine. And chiefs were not expected to do anything without having gone to their staff carrier woman to give them some divination as to what should they do, or if they do this, what will happen if we go to war, that kind of thing. And historically speaking, we know that when the Romans were conquering Europe, they came to the edge of the Germanic territories, and they came up against this massive army of the unified Germanic tribes and the Roman Empire, and they're across each other on this field of battle. And the Germanic chief of that army, the general of that army, had a seer, a seethe practitioner, a staff carrier woman. And she told him, do not attack. Do not attack or you will lose. She said, wait. And I don't remember what the specifics were, but this is historic. We have this, we have this recorded in history that this actually happened. And that chief or that general decided not to listen to the advice of his staff carrier woman, and he attacked the Romans. And the rest is history. The Romans ended up winning that battle decisively, and even though they weren't able to go very deep into the Germanic tribal territory, they went far enough that they could completely control Europe and Northern Europe, and the Germanic peoples ended up becoming enslaved and all that kind of stuff as a result of that. And that's because the feminine carries the staff of the man. So I find that really interesting because the stereotype of the modern Germanic Western person is quite the opposite. They're very, we're seen as being misogynistic, that we don't appreciate the feminine, that we destroy nature, that we don't listen to, all that kind of stuff. And, now we can say, if women ran the world, blah, blah, blah. Well, something happened. Something happened where the Germanic tribes people decided to stop listening to the power of the staff carriers, which meant listening to the power of the feminine. And the rest is history. And I think the world would have been a completely different place if that general had listened to his staff carrier woman and waited until she had given him the okay. But because he didn't do that, he didn't listen to the feminine. This is something important, guys, in general. Women don't always do it constructively. So, if you're getting criticized and you're getting attacked and blah, 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 what that means is that the feminine in that individual is not coming from consciousness. But Shakti, if you get the same message over and over from women, especially if they don't know each other, Shakti, energy, if the feminine is trying to tell you something that is helpful for your success, and you need to listen to that. If you're in a relationship, again, maybe your partner, your wife or your girlfriend, maybe she doesn't express it very well, but, more often than not, whatever it is that she's saying, she's representing something to you. If she's criticizing you, she's responding to something in you, a weakness within you. And the feminine will always respond harshly to weakness in men, always. And so whether, there may be something else going on and maybe she's not the right person for you, but there's something in that. I'll give you an example in my life. My ex-wife, whom I divorced, one of the last things that she said to me was that she wanted me to be more self-sufficient. And I really took that personally. Felt like such an attack. But that was the beginning of the end of our marriage. And as it so happened, the end of that marriage put me in a position where I was free. Because, even though she was saying that, there was some reality of I had to live underneath. I was trying to please her all the time, and she was very possessive and very controlling. And so it was hard for me to be my own person because I was allowing her to dominate me in so many ways. Again, men seek after their mother. That was me. I did it the wrong way, and then I finally learned how to do it the right way after that. And when we divorced, the power of what Shakti was saying, it speaks through whomever. If you're in a bad relationship, Shakti will speak through that woman in maybe not the most constructive way. But it's trying to communicate to you, men. Trying to communicate to you. The feminine has the best interests of the masculine in mind. And whether or not it's communicated constructively or not isn't really the point. If you listen to the underlying message, it's always what you need to hear. And if you take action, because the feminine is always seeking to get the masculine to take action. And it is true, the masculine will not take action unless stimulated by the feminine. Ideally, it is done in such a way where the man, his ego is stimulated, and he thinks what he wants to do is go win the world for his wife. When in reality what has happened is that she has seduced him. She has appeased his ego in a constructive way with his best interest at heart, and that his response, just like in lovemaking, it's the exact same thing. What happens? He's flaccid, and then she does something that stimulates him to become strong. It's always the same, and then he takes action on that. And that is going to be the same thing in relationships. So this is what men are looking for. They're looking to be nurtured, and they're looking to be seduced. And unless you can understand what I mean when I say the word seduced, that will tell how successful you'll be. But you're going to have to get your own personal issues out of the way. Just like yesterday when I was talking about men and having men understand that they are weaker than women, that they cannot function without the power of the feminine. It's important for ladies, if you're listening to me and you're having problems with what I'm saying, I can understand that. But you have to look at what's being said spiritually. And what men want is to be seduced. And they want to be empowered. And without you, they won't feel that way. Unless they're empowered within themselves, which is what the whole idea of celibacy is really all about and all that kind of stuff. So seether and galder is about that. Seethe means that the feminine energy, whether it's a man or a woman, submits themselves to the gods, and the gods take them over and speak through them. So afterwards, they might not even know what they said. And I've worked with feminine seethe practitioners. I know, and seethe is really popular, and everybody, because they think it's shamanism. And there's a lot of people, men and women both, who want to be seethe shamans, and they have no idea what that means. To be a seethe shaman means that you give completely your consciousness over to the gods, and the gods speak through you. And then you don't remember what's said, or you don't understand what you're seeing. And the masculine is galder. Galder means chant. So, and it means to speak as well, which is what I'm doing now. The wizard speaks with his intellect. He uses his intellect to put into words the depth of wisdom that is beyond words. That's his job, to try and take that which is beyond words and put it into words so that people can understand it and put it into practice in their life. That's the masculine. So unless you like that idea of being taken over by the gods, then do you really want to be a seethe practitioner, or do you want to be a galder practitioner? So technically speaking, it's regardless of what sex you are. If you practice seether, meaning the gods speak through you, or you're overwhelmed with visions, that means that you are operating from the feminine. And same thing, people want to have shamanic visions, but they don't understand what that means. If you don't have the seethe practitioner wizard to interpret your visions, you won't know what you just saw. And this is one of the things I've done in the past and continue to do with my seethe practitioner students, is that one of the reasons that they meet with me on a regular basis is because they have these visions and they don't know what they mean. I listen to the visions and I immediately know what the symbolism is and what it means. I'm not the one having the vision, which is good, because without them, they come and they bring information to me from the spirit world. So there's that interdependence. You want to be the wizard, you want to be the guy who is running the show and the blah, blah, blah. Well, he can't do that without the information that comes from his staff carrier women. His staff carrier women bring to him the visions, and or the gods will speak through them, and the wizard will know what that means and know what to do with it. But the seethe practitioner doesn't. They don't know what it means. They won't, but once you explain it to them, then it makes perfect sense, because they were there and they experienced it. So you asked me about the difference between seethe and galder in terms of the feminine and masculine energy. That's my answer for you. Melanin Wise says he's emotionally unavailable. I don't know if that person's talking about me or talking about Shiva or whoever I was talking about earlier. In any case, Maclovio Padilla question: if I'm not getting this energy from men, how do I get it from the universe directly? Which energy are you talking about? You mean if you're not getting energy from the masculine? Well, the way you get it from the universe is to worship the masculine. So worship Odin, worship Thor, worship Shiva. Shiva would be like the default. Tyr. Tyr is the highest expression of the masculine. Worship the masculine deities. Makes me want to ask you a bunch of questions. Why aren't you getting it from men? Do you have men in your life? Are you in a relationship and you're not getting that from your partner? Why are you still with him? Why are you choosing to be with somebody that's not giving you what you want? If you're single, what is preventing you? You obviously want to get it from men, or you wouldn't ask me this question. Why are you not able to stimulate a man to give you that? There's some conflict within you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you. Obviously, there isn't. I'm saying that if I'm right, there's a conflict within you that is preventing you from going after what you want. You obviously, on some level, maybe you don't feel you deserve it. And so, if, like I gave you the example of the woman who I was ready. I'm like, here's my number. Give me a call. And she says, I don't think I'm going to call you because you seem truly at your best right now. Meaning that if she were to come into my life somehow, I wouldn't be at my best, and I don't. That right now I don't need her. Do you have something like that going on? I don't know you. I don't know enough I haven't talked to you to find out, but something in that question that I'm not seeing. Okay, so no more questions at the moment, so let's continue with the teaching. So moving on, let me take a look at my other notes here. So now we'll get into some relationship stuff. This is coming from the book How to Keep a Man, which you can, if you want to get that, you go to michaelwilliamdenny.com and you can find that there. And the first chapter in there is entitled Men Are Dogs. And so what do you think about when I say that men are dogs? Is that a put down? Do you like that idea? People like dogs. Women like dogs. I would say that women like dogs more than cats. Even though, there's the cat woman out there and all that, the women with all their cats. But in my experience, I run into a lot of women who really like dogs. And that's because the dogs do represent that sort of masculine energy. And it gives them that same energetic interaction. Because you kind of have to treat dogs the way you would treat your man. Because one of the things about dogs is you have to train them. Right? If you don't train your dog, he's going to poop all over things. He's not going to, dogs don't clean up after themselves. They're dirty. They tear stuff open. And they're constantly humping your leg and, licking your face and all that kind of stuff. So you have to train dogs. You have to train them with boundaries. And same thing is true with men. You got to train them. You're complaining about your man. He doesn't clean up after himself. He doesn't do whatever. You have to train him. But how do you train a dog? You train a dog by giving him a treat. So there's got to be that payoff for him. If you're just expecting him to do what it is you want him to do, and you're shaking your finger at him because he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that, then he's going to be one of those dogs that doesn't pay attention to you. You tell him to do something and he won't listen to you. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the understanding of what it is that men need and all that kind of stuff. But men are also, like dogs, men are not psychic. So we talked about this yesterday, but I'll share it again. When I get into a relationship, because I've done this enough and I am a typical man, I'm an idiot. I'm very myopic. I only see what's right in front of me. I have no clue what you're thinking or what you want. And unless you tell me, I am most likely going to do the exact opposite of what it is you want me to do. And so you can't run around with that feeling of, if he really loved me, he would know. No, he doesn't know. He has no idea what you want. You have to tell him. Now, you have to be able to tell him in such a way where it's going to stimulate him to want to give you what you want. And that goes back to the whole idea of seducing him into action. And that takes a lot of subtlety and a lot of power. So if you feel like you're constantly berating your man and telling him what to do, it means that you lack feminine power. Because the more feminine power you have, you can just sort of hint at what you want and he will rush to go do it. Same with the dog. You know, dogs are, my ex-wife used to raise dogs and train them, and she used to say dogs are gamblers. That if you have a treat, and if they do one thing once and they get a treat for doing something, they'll do that same thing over and over and over and over, hoping to get that treat. Like if a dog, you know, stands up on his hind legs, you know, just trying to get that treat from you, and stands up on his hind legs and you give him a treat, that dog is going to sit in front of you every 10 minutes and stand on his hind legs, try and get you to give a treat to him. Guys are the same way. So when I'm in a relationship with a woman, and you know, if this comes up, at some point we'll have some kind of discussion, and I'll say, hey, listen, I don't know what it is that you want unless you tell me. So please don't walk around with a desire that's unfulfilled, because if I can, I'm going to want to please you. I'm going to want to make sure that you're happy. But if I don't know what you want, I can't give that to you. And the downside of that is, of course, women say, well, if you don't know, then you don't love me. If you really love me, you should just know. What's coming out of that is that, one, she doesn't have the power to stimulate him, because it's true. If she has the feminine power, she can psychically make him do things and think it's his idea. If she doesn't have that power, then she's waiting around and doesn't want to be rejected. And so she's not owning what she wants. And she doesn't feel like she deserves it, because if she did, she would ask for it. So I say, listen, if there's something you want from me, you got to ask me, but understand that I have the right to say no. And this is the downside. One of the reasons why women are afraid to ask for what they want is because they're not willing to be refused. And so if they don't put themselves out there and they just keep throwing hints around and hoping that it happens, then they can feel justified when they don't get what they want, and they're angry and they're mopey and they want to punish him and all that. But, you know, this is how you find out, you know, how well the relationship is going to work. And that's why I say, you know, listen, if you tell me what you want, understand that I have the right to say no. And if my saying no brings you to the realization that I'm not the right man for you, then that's good information, and we can part as friends and find the person we really do need. Because there is a guy out there who can give you what you want. Like, for instance, kids. I've never wanted children, ever. I don't want them now, and I've never wanted them. And, you know, now that I'm 54, even though I still think I'm 30, you know, there are some younger women that hit on me, and they're doing so because they think, because I'm in my 50s, that I'm going to, you know, in exchange for their youth and their sexuality, that I'll give them my money and raise their kid for them or with them. They really want a younger guy, but they think, you know, if they go after me, that they can control me with their sexuality, and then I can pay for their lifestyle and take care of them and their kid and all that. But, you know, when I was younger, in my 30s especially, because that's when, again, generally speaking, in my experience, that's when women's time clocks start going off. Women would come to me and they'd want to have the talk after maybe a few dates. Sit me down and they'd say, I really like you. I think you're a great person. I need to have a kid, and I need to know if you want to have kids, then great, we can continue. But if not, you need to tell me now, because I got to find somebody who I can have a child with, because my clock's going off and it's driving me crazy. And I really appreciated that. You know, and I would say to them, no, I don't want that. And then they would, you know, whatever, they would be upset, and then they'd go do what they wanted to do, and they'd leave, but that was okay. I appreciated that, and I still do. You know, let me know what it is that you need, and I can tell you whether or not I have the ability to do it or not. Now, the other side to that is that I have, in relationships, especially with my fiancée who passed, there were things that I volunteered to give her that I would never have volunteered to give any woman previous to that. And that is because of what I was saying earlier, that she empowered me so much, that I had so much excess power within me, I had more to give. And so I was willing to sacrifice a lot more just to be with her. And I did things, and I gave in ways that I've never given before. And I got to be honest, I don't know if I ever will again, unless I can find somebody who can empower me like that. All right, so I think there might be some questions here. Let's see. So I was asking Maclovia Padilla, who said, if I'm not getting this energy, I guess the masculine energy, from men, how do I get it from the universe directly? And I responded, and I had some thoughts about where I thought that might be coming from, and I had some questions. So she responded, and she said, I'm not getting it from men probably because I'm still jacked up from a long relationship with the boy's dad. So was he your husband? Because then that makes me want to ask you all kinds of other questions. Or was he just the baby daddy? And she goes on to say, I am single. I do try to interact, I'm assuming with men, but there's still a disconnect, but I want this energy. And okay, so I'm kind of right that you do want to connect with men, but there's some issue there. So the answer to this is that, and listen, I've been through my share of damaging and painful relationships, and so I understand that sometimes we just need time to stay single, and then we don't have a lot to give. And I'm kind of struggling with this right now in some ways I won't get into, but what we want to do is we want to go in the opposite direction. We get, as you say, jacked up in a relationship, and then in order to protect ourselves, we then go in the opposite direction, and out of fear, and that's not helpful. So I don't know if that's what you're doing or not, but I am single. I do try to interact, but there's still a disconnect. So I'm not sure how to answer you, but you do say, thank you for the answer. Perfect. I just got my Vedic chart from Lokia. Okay, so again, if I had more information from you, I could go more deep, but anyway, we'll leave it there for now. Rami, question. Can you talk about celibacy and your experience with it? All right. I will talk about it in connection to energy and women in relationships. I come down on the MGTOW boys, and it's not because I don't relate. There was a point in my life where I would have been a MGTOW. There was no such thing as MGTOW then, but I definitely thought that way and spoke that way. And I took half-truths from the energetic truth. Now, you've heard me say here that men want to be seduced. And the way to get a man really to be at his best is and of course this is an ideal, so this isn't necessarily going to happen realistically, but ideally, the feminine has the ability to stimulate the masculine to do things it would never do and to sacrifice in ways it would never sacrifice. And the masculine will think it's his own idea. And that's ideally, from an energetic perspective, what you want. That means the masculine and the feminine are in complete alignment, and she's doing her part, which is she is empowering him, or she is responding to his internal strength. If he is Shiva, if he is strong within himself, that will stimulate her to want to empower him even more. It will turn her on to empower him even more, to get him harder, right? Same kind of thing as in this lovemaking arena. She'll want to empower him, and that will make him want to do what? Give to her. And he'll think it's his idea. So when the feminine is not functioning properly, and the feminine has a lack of power, she's still going to seek out the masculine, but she will seek it out in ways that are not conducive and not constructive and not helpful. And so, like I said, what the feminine wants to do is it wants to empower the male. Now, if the feminine either doesn't have enough to respond to from the man, and or she herself is disempowered and doesn't have enough of Shakti in herself, then her response, instead of empowering him, will be to chop him down to size, to criticize him. And I have to tell you, women, there is nothing more debilitating to us than a woman's criticism. You can take a man's criticism. You can't take a woman's criticism. We can't do it. And I've seen this, and I've also done these kinds of exercises where, if I've got a group of people, I'll take the geeky, nerdy, weak guy, and I'll bring him up to the front, and then I'll find the super hot, sexy woman, and I'll bring her up front, and I will tell her to sit on the ground and to put her hand around his ankle, and then whisper in her ear and say to her, think of this man as the most incredibly, wonderful man you've ever known. Think positive thoughts about him. And don't, I'll show, so he doesn't know what I'm whispering to her. And then you go muscle test the guy. Have him put his arm out, and then, see how far down his hand will go. And his hand will be like a rock. You won't be able to move it. And then I go to her and I whisper in her ear and I say, okay, now think that he's a complete loser and you can't stand being around him. And again, nothing. She's not doing anything different. She's just having a thought. And then you go and the arm just goes down. Can't even hold it up. So women, you have to understand that, well, you don't have to, but just know that that is the truth. And if your desire, and if you are verbally attacking a guy, chopping him down to size, it really does. It just completely, slices his nutsack into pieces. And it goes against what it is that you want to accomplish. If what you want to accomplish is have him go accomplish more so that he can give more to you, that is the worst way to do it. So the obvious thing is then I start to go, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone and this is going on, I say, why are you with him? Because you chose him. If he's really that much of a wimp, and he really is that incapable, or he's that selfish, or that childish, or that lazy, or whatever the problem is, you picked him. Why are you with him? So we have to take responsibility. Nobody's a victim here. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to celibacy, getting to your question, celibacy, when done the right way from the masculine perspective, and I was celibate for 6.5 years, but I did so because, you wanted my perspective, I'll share my experience. I was with a woman, and I was in my 20s, and I was that guy. I was that stupid, testosterone-filled guy that really, I couldn't communicate with women very well. I didn't understand them. I didn't know what the hell they wanted. Why are they constantly, I didn't get them. I needed their power. It means that I needed to, and it was tough for me because I've never been good at casual sex. It's just not something I've ever done well. I've never been able to do multiple partners. I can't do it. It makes me feel horrible. And, every time I've tried to do it, I always feel really bad. It's no fun. It makes me sad. And so my problem is that I needed women. And so I would date a lot of women for the physical act, not knowing that what I needed was power. And I couldn't go far beyond. 9 months would be the maximum. That may only last a few weeks or a couple of months, and then we'd break up. And it would be because I was too young for them. They needed somebody that was able to give them more than I was able to give. I just was about my career and my stuff and myself, and why can't we just hang out 2 or 3 days a week and have sex and go to the movies? What more do you need from me? Why am I not enough for you? I can't take this. I got to go. So I was in a relationship for 9 months with a woman, and we got to that same place that always I had gotten to in relationships, where she was upset and I didn't know what the hell the problem was. And she was sitting me down and she was telling me all the ways that I'm not meeting her needs, which, by the way, is the worst thing, again, you can do. I mean, if that's what's going on, that's what's going on. But, that's just, If you're at that point and you're telling a man how he's not meeting your needs, there's just something wrong. You know, I'm not saying it's impossible, but there's a pretty good chance there's just nothing that can be done there. It's over, because at that point, you know, all he hears is what a screw up he is, which is the exact opposite of what he needs, which is to be empowered. So it's kind of over at that point. Anyway, I was having one of these discussions, and she was getting very emotional. And what I didn't understand back then is that when a woman is talking to you in your face and she's emotional, it means that she's desperately trying to connect with you. Now, ladies, you have to understand, especially young men, but maybe true with older guys too, that for a man, when men are, let me put it to you this way. Men together are always in a state of détente. They're always in a state of a very tentative peace. That war can break out at any moment. This is how men think. We walk down the street, we're looking at other guys. I think I could kick his ass. I think he could kick my ass. Why is that guy looking at me? Especially the younger and the more testosterone filled they are, it is all about that. It's all about the posturing and, you know, all that. I mean, take a guy to a bar, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Especially get alcohol in him, and he's looking around to see, he's either trying to hit on women or look at women, or he's looking at the guys up and down to see who he can beat up. That's a guy with high testosterone in his brain. He can't think. He's always in a state of war. And this is what one of the things he gets from women and sex is that release of that. And then for a few hours, he's not thinking unconsciously about war. So just know that when two guys are in the room, if they are talking to each other in very low tones and saying, you need to do this, or I'm going to get pissed off, or you need to do that, it means they're about to fight. It means they're about to go to blows. If the yelling starts, once it gets to the yelling and F you, there's blows are going to happen. It's just, you know, it's just the way things are. So when you're with a younger guy or a guy with a lot of testosterone who hasn't learned how to understand the dynamics, if you get emotional and you get in his face, all he knows is that there's a physical threat, and he shuts down because he knows that he can't fight you, ideally, if he's a real man. He's not going to get physical violent with a woman. He shouldn't get violent with anybody. I've never been in a fist fight since junior high, so it is possible to be a full-fledged male and not be a violent person. But I'm telling you, this is how it works. So I'm with her, and she's in my face, and she's very emotional. And, of course, that's making me shut down more and more, and I'm getting quiet, which, again, when a guy gets quiet, it means that there's about to be somebody's about to go down. There's about to be punches thrown. So she's yelling, and I get quieter, which makes her yell more, which makes me... And before I know it, she's just telling me all the ways that I'm not meeting her needs, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. So I say to her, and I say... I don't do this now, by the way, but this was back then. I say, I need for you to lower your voice because I can't hear what you're saying. I need for you to please lower your voice. And she didn't. And I said to myself, listen, we need to just talk at another time. So I said, maybe I should come back later. To which she responded sarcastically. She said, yeah, that's right, get out of here. And I thought that she and I had come to a logical understanding that we should talk about this later when we're not so emotional. And I got up to leave. At which point she started screaming, how dare you? Don't you dare leave this apartment. And I lost it. And I started yelling, and I said, what the hell do you want me to do? You want me to hit you? And then she said, well, at least that would be something. Now, I did not hit her, but I got very upset. I got so angry with her that I broke up with her. I couldn't take it. And looking back on it, had I been able to, in that moment, just look to her and maybe take her by the hand and say, I am so sorry that you feel this way. I want to try and be there for you. Maybe I won't be able to do it perfectly, but I want to hear everything that you have to say, and I want to know what it is that you need, and I hope I can give it to you. And that would have probably calmed her down. But that's me, 30 years later. It was at that point that I became celibate, because I did feel that I was being drained of my energy. And so after that fight, I went to, I don't know, somebody. There was somebody in my life that knew us both, a mutual friend. And he said, listen, here's what you guys are going to do. You're going to take 2 weeks apart, and you're going to think it over. And then when you're done, you're going to come back, and then you're going to blah, blah, blah. After a week maximum, I felt my energy coming back, and I knew. I said, well, this relationship is draining me of energy. So that's it. I'm going to break up with her. And once I made that decision that I was going to break up with her, even though I knew I had a week left, the phone started exploding. She was calling me every 10 minutes, crying, saying, I know that you've decided to break up with me. Because what had happened is, energetically, I had severed my connection to her. So it is true that in an imbalanced relationship, the feminine can steal energy from the masculine. That is true. In an imbalanced relationship. What I've found is that if somebody, and I'm going to use this term loosely, but if somebody has unresolved codependent issues, that person will be a drain on the other. Energetically. Forget about everything else. Energetically, just being around them, you'll just get tired. It's true for both men and women. But in terms of the act of creation, the feminine does want that masculine strength, and will take that strength and turn it into create something, whether it be family, children, a home. They're going to do something with that energy. Now, ideally, she gives that energy back to him, which makes him want to go out and get more stuff and bring it back to her. And then there's this, this continual, they feed off of each other. But if one or both of them is codependent, then one or both of them starts to feel drained, which is why they're both complaining that the other isn't doing enough, because they're both being drained. It means both of them aren't giving unconditionally. They're giving with conditions. So whenever I talk to somebody who feels drained in a relationship, it may be true that their partner might be draining them, but at the same time, I know that they are giving selfishly. Whatever they do for that other person, they're doing in order to get something back. And they're trying to give as little as possible and get as much back as possible. And that's when you end up stealing energy. And so, what ended up happening is that the teacher that I had focused on the half-truth, which is that the feminine, like in the act of sex, takes the energy from the male and then uses it to create. And so the woman will drain you of your life force energy. Now, this is true. When I was talking about when I was full of testosterone and I was 20-something, and I walked down the street and I felt like I had to fight every guy that I walked past, having sex with a woman would release that, and I would feel, for instance, I used to make fun of, when, college or whatever, and, two young people get together and they're lying in bed and the guy's about to fall asleep afterwards. She says, what are you thinking? He's like, what? What are you thinking? Meaning she wants to know, how does he feel about her? Does he love her? Does he want to connect with her? And he's like, I'm not thinking anything right now. I just want to go to sleep. And the whole idea was that I did this so I don't have to think anymore. So anyway, but that's a situation where a man wants his energy drained because he has too much. He has too much testosterone, he has too much yang energy, and he wants it depleted so that he can relax and stop thinking so much. Because thinking is yang. So I was celibate for 6.5 years, and that did a lot. And I was doing energy practices, and like has been said earlier, I was connecting directly to the universe, and I was getting Shakti energy directly from the universe. I was doing a martial art and a practice that dealt with both masculine and feminine, and I learned how to, my goal was to be a badass fighter. So I learned that if you fight with the feminine energy, like if you strike with feminine energy, you can destroy an opponent instantly. It's like nuclear bombs. So I wanted that. So in order to have that, I had to tap into the feminine, and I had to learn how to be softer and how to, all the technical feminine stuff. But I wanted power. So I'm trying to tell you that even though I got that energy, it wasn't because I was righteous and good, and it was because I was, I had my own selfish agenda. But this is the way the universe works. It will give you these payoffs, and once you get past the superficial payoff, then you start to see what the spiritual truth is behind it. So that's why now I have a completely different understanding. That's why now I can say to you, not from a ass-kissing, a weak, modern, limp-wristed guy saying that the feminine is everything. I'm not coming from that new age, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, man, that the feminine has all the power because I've experienced it. So now that I can see that, I see that in the feminine. And if I can find a woman who's at that level who can give me that power, I want to take it. If not, then I want to bring that out in her. And so that's one of the things that can make you very attractive to women, is if you can see that within them and you want to bring that feminine out, you want to empower the feminine so that she can give that to you, she's going to love you for that. Her experience is going to be that you see her, that you understand her, that you honor her, which is all true. So I was celibate for 6.5 years, and that's what I got out of that, among other things, to answer your question. Let's see. See how many other questions we got going on here. Let me see. Am I up to date here? Sven Vilking 333 question. Is it correct that building a good relationship with Shiva, Odin, makes it easier to connect to the divine feminine? I don't know. It makes me want to ask, are you a woman asking me that? Are you a man asking me that? Let's take it from both angles. If you're a woman and you're asking me, what you're asking me is, if I worship the divine masculine, does it make it easier to connect with the divine feminine? Of course. Because we're talking about the superlative. Human beings are, they're a mixture of both, and they've got faults and, all that. But if you're worshiping the ultimate, then those deities represent the perfection of that, which is what the gods are. The gods are the divine perfection. So of course, if you worship Odin or Shiva, and what you want is to connect to the feminine, then Shiva is going to show you how to do that. And it will also, the more that you empower yourself with the true masculine, the more attractive you're going to be to the feminine. The opposite is true as well. If you are a woman and if you are a woman and you're seeking a relationship with the masculine in order to connect with the divine feminine, of course, that is also true. The true masculine is going to stimulate the true feminine within you. Okay, so I hope I answered your question. I got kind of confused there. Okay, Maclovia Padilla is giving me more information, which is okay because I asked her for it. She said, I have 2 boys, same dad, lived with him for 7 years, so he's not your husband. Why? Why didn't you marry him? You wanted to have kids with him, but you didn't marry him. Something's broken there. Something's not right there. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that there's a disconnect. The masculine and the feminine can't come together. I'm okay with people living together and getting married and not getting married, but you had not 1, but 2 children with this guy. And from what I'm hearing, you didn't marry him. So there's some denial going on one or both of your parts, and you guys didn't commit. So that's the first problem. I mean, why would you want to have kids if you're not fully committed? That's all marriage is. It says, I'm fully committed to you. And the children are the representation of that total commitment. It means something. So don't commit if you're not prepared to commit. And don't have kids if you're not. I mean, please, I hope you're not taking this personally, but you know, if I were to talk to somebody, you know, and they were talking about having a kid, and I would say, well, are you going to marry? And if no, we're not going to get married, I'm like, why are you going to do that to the kid? It's not fair to them. And you're asking for trouble because it shows a lack of commitment. If you're the one on the end who wants the commitment but isn't getting it, and you allow yourself to be put in that position of having a child with somebody who doesn't want to commit to you fully, then you are, you know, you're just handing your energy. You're just giving it away. You are going to end up feeling unsupported and unloved, and you're going to feel drained. If you're the one that doesn't want to commit to a marriage, but you want to have somebody to give you a kid, I mean, that's pretty obvious there. You're holding, you know, it's, you know, in the spirit fighting practice, one of the things that you do when you really want to, like if you're going to fight a demon, understand that demons are going to go after your own emotional limitations. And you have to face it. So one of the things they would say is you have to face the door. And we would do this either in practice doing the actual martial art, like, you know, to really get the align so that your strike goes in and really has all the power behind it. It means that you have to align yourself to the door. There are 8 doors. You have to align yourself to a specific door and fire into it. Otherwise, if you're not aligned and you fire, you won't have enough energy behind it to do any damage. But it's true with life as well. If you want something with life, you can't be half in and half out. You're going to get mixed results. And it shows fear. So that's what I want to say to you. So you say, I have 2 boys, same dad, lived with him for 7 years, left because it was abusive. So, I mean, again, I'm going to go off on, you know, it's not surprising to me. If it's abusive, meaning he was abusive to you, you were willing to have 2 kids with a man who was not willing to completely commit himself to you enough to marry you. I don't know. Maybe it was the other way around. So it was doomed from the beginning. And that means that you were wanting something and you weren't being honest with yourself about it. And you put yourself in a position and made yourself vulnerable. And if he is an abuser, he saw a victim. Because abusers do not go after people who are strong. They go after victims. Victims are people who are weak. And I'm not saying that they're wrong with them. They're choosing out of the choices that they make because they don't own what they want. They don't believe they deserve it. They don't take that kind of full-fledged committed action. They set themselves up to be taken advantage of. So that's what I'm hearing you say, is that you put yourself in a position because you weren't honest about what you really wanted and you allowed yourself to be manipulated and abused, and then you left. So you have to empower yourself. You're not getting it from men because a man who is empowered is going to see that. He's going to see, oh, she's going to drain my energy. I don't want that. Because if you're not fully owning what you are and what you want and proudly stating to the world, this is what I want and this is what I deserve, you're going to seek to get it. And you're going to act as though, you know, hey, listen, I don't ask for much, I blah, blah, blah. And a guy who's empowered is going to know that that woman is bad news. She is going to drain me of my energy, and he's going to stay away from you. And an abuser is going to come by, and he's going to go, oh, look at that victim. So if you feel disempowered, you say limp, you feel disempowered. It's because you haven't owned up to what you want. You haven't been honest with yourself. I don't know where that came from. I don't know what childhood you went through in order to not feel good enough to be loved or to be empowered or to, because anyway, I'd have to find out more about you. But that's what I know just from what I've been doing this for 30 years. That's what I know. So in order for you to get the masculine, the energy masculine that you want, you have to first own and face and accept the feminine within you and not be feel guilty about it and not feel self-judgmental about it. Probably going to have to go, you probably should be talking with somebody like me who can help you work through that and find that. You can do the Hool breath. If you haven't done it already, I would do this. Go onto my channel and do the Hool breath for 30 minutes every day so that you can empower yourself with the feminine, start to own your femininity, start to own your power and be proud of it. And you can ask Mother Hola, how do I get this in me? How do I get this masculine power to balance me out? Because you want to be fulfilled. You want to be loved and you want to be fulfilled. Whether you get that from the universe or from another person, doesn't really matter. That's what you want. So the bottom line is that you're not loving yourself. And that might be a frightening thing. You've got to be willing to completely love yourself. And that does not mean being a victim. It does not mean going around saying men are the problem and men do this and men do that. And it's not to say that there aren't asshole men out there. It means, and it doesn't mean to say that you're the problem and you don't deserve it. You got to find that balance. So that's my suggestion. You need more feminine. You don't need masculine. You need more feminine energy because the feminine energy that you have now is weak. And you need to empower your feminine energy. And when you get there, then you'll be able to attract the masculine to you, either from the universe or from an actual living human. Okay? Let's see. Yeah, you're right. She says, and I feel, how can I do my job properly for my boys and as a shaman or a healer if I do not have this balanced inside of myself or even get the right guide? Laugh out loud. So go to michaelwilliamdenny.com and buy How to Keep a Man. Why do I say that? I wrote that book because I just wanted to get some thoughts out about, what women don't understand about men and communication and relationships. My fiance, who's now passed, but who was my other half, who empowered me, she read that book and she came back and she said, everybody needs to know this. This is teaching me how to raise my boys. I said, what? I didn't write this about. She says, you don't understand that what you taught me about how men need to be communicated and what they want, I give that to my boys, not in a relationship way, but energetically. She learned how to communicate with them. She said it's revolutionized, that it revolutionized her relationship with them. So if what you're wanting is to know how to be a mom for your two boys, then I would get that book. That will help you. You'll learn all kinds of things about yourself, but it will help you with that as well. All right. Okay. Joelle, Eliora, I don't know what this is. Joelle, something else says, question. How can I, as a woman, continue to level up and keep empowering my man and bring out more of his masculine power? I was raised by a mother that was the queen of criticizing and tearing us down as kids. How can I recover from that? Well, same kind of thing. I would do the Hool breath. That's the true mother. So you need to align with the true mother, not with your limited human mother. That's true for both men and women. Align with the energy that has nothing but pure love for you, with no expectations on you. How can you level up and keep empowering my man and bring out more of his masculine power? That makes me want to ask you a bunch of questions. So I'll just throw them out there in case there's other people listening who are similar. First question I have is, are you asking me that because your habit is to chop him down because that's what your mother taught you and you're trying not to do that? If that's the question, then it's real simple. The more that you get connected to the feminine and your power, the more that you understand that you have all the power over him. You know, this is the mistake about women's liberation. Not that women shouldn't be equal to men in all regards. They're more powerful than men. Not because of that, but because, you know, I gave you the example of the woman that was yelling at me. That when you try and act towards a man like another man would act towards a man, you end up shortchanging all of your power. So, you know, like in an argument, ladies, if a guy is trying to rationalize your feelings and tell you what you're saying isn't rational and, you know, trying to fix the problem that way, it just infuriates you, right? So don't try and be a man. Don't try and talk to a man like you think a man would. That's not where your power is going to come from. Men talk from that because of their essence, but you know, it's also from their lack of power. Your job and your ability is to empower men to act. That's what you have the power to do. So the way that you do that is you feed his ego. Now, it makes me also want to point out that if there's a guy that you're constantly criticizing, again, you know, like seeks out like. So if you're imbalanced on the feminine, then you're going to attract a guy who's imbalanced in the masculine, and then he is not going to be that true man with that true strength. And then your reaction to that will be to want to criticize him, because that's you complaining, saying that he's not stimulating you to empower him. That's really what you're saying. You're tearing him down because what's happening is you're saying, the energetic message is, I want to empower you, but you're not giving me anything to empower. And you're rejecting my gift of wanting to empower you by being such a lazy pussy or whatever his problem is. But you can see that just creates a self-creating whirlpool that goes nowhere. So somebody has to be the conscious one. And so you have to start empowering him. Empowering him with compliments. If, you know, it's giving, you know, cooking dinner for him, if it's making love to him, if it's, I don't know what it is that he feels empowered by. That's the way to do it. Now the problem is that may not change him. So if you're just, then you're going to get drained if you're just going to give all your energy out and he doesn't respond to that. So then at some point, I end up having to ask the question, can you accept him exactly as he is? And if the answer is yes, but if he could, then what you're really saying is no. And if your answer is yes, but, then you only have two choices. You either got to learn to accept what's being given to you, or you got to find somebody else who can give you what you want. Now, if you're asking me this question, how can I as a woman continue to level up and keep empowering my man to bring out more of his Yeah, see, what I hear in that is what you're saying is that he's not masculine enough. Because you feel you have to bring out his masculine power. So that's what I hear in that. So, you know, I don't know that it's going to work. If you, like I said, make love to him, cook him dinner, stroke his ego, make him feel good about himself, and he doesn't respond to that by becoming more masculine, then you're throwing your energy away and it's not going to change. Unless you guys go to counseling or something like that. The thing is, you got to ask yourself, on whatever side you're on, whether you're a man or a woman, and you're in this kind of dynamic that's not working, assuming that I'm right about your question, then you kind of have to find out if your partner is willing to be self-examining. Because if your partner is not willing to examine themselves and grow, there's nothing you can do. It's a waste of time. So that's why. Can you accept them exactly as they are? And if so, Don't criticize him. Stop criticizing him. Start start empowering him. Start stroking his ego and complimenting him and doing the things that he likes. And he either will or won't respond to that. And if you're not okay with how things are, and you're asking me this because you're hoping I'll give you some magical tool that will make him be more of a man, he won't go beyond whatever his character is. So you have to find out a guy's character. So if you were raised by a mother that was the queen of criticizing and tearing us down as kids, I'm assuming she was tearing down her husband as well, which means that she was not fully empowered with the feminine. Because if she was fully empowered with the feminine, she would have attracted a man that would have stimulated her to compliment. I mean, I go on and on and on about my fiance who's passed, but I never had an issue. I'm trying to think if there was I can't think of one issue. I think there was one time that I can remember, and it was because I was not facing the door. I was complaining about a living situation that I wanted to get out of, and she said, I don't want to hear that anymore. And I got really hurt by that. That's the only time I can remember it. But she was right. I wasn't facing what I truly wanted, and I wasn't owning that it was time for me to level up and move to someplace else. And I did end up moving to another place, and then that solved the problem, and we were both happier. But she complimented me all the time, and it wasn't because she was kissing my ass. She wasn't one of those people. So when I say complimenting a man, I'm not saying kiss his ass, because ass kissers are predators. There's two kinds of predators, and somebody who is a people pleaser is a predator, because people pleasers never give compliments without an agenda, and they do it to control. So control and manipulation is not what I'm talking about. That is the warped aspect of the feminine. That's the feminine that is without power. It becomes manipulative, and it becomes people-pleasing, and it people-pleases in order to steal from you and to get from you. In your mind, you don't realize that's what you're doing, but that's what's happening. So I'm not saying to compliment him with the hopes of getting something from him out of that compliment. You got to find in him what it is that you feel stimulated to compliment. And I guess what I'm saying here is that my take on my relationship with Lisa was that I felt that she was responding to the masculine in me that kept stimulating her to compliment me all the time. That it wasn't coming from an insincere place. And as a result of that, I mean, the way, and she, she was the one that said, you got to write that book. She was the one that, a lot of my business model that I have now came from her telling me, the world needs what you have. It is so amazing, and you're so brilliant. And, I would be talking about something. She'd say, stop, stop, stop. You got to go back. There's so much in those 10 words you just said. There's a whole giant novel, and I want to experience everything you just said. Please explain that to me. I mean, she was just totally, getting me hard emotionally and physically and mentally and spiritually. She just had that ability, and she was doing it honestly. So on the one hand, I attracted somebody who could see me for who I was and responded to that. So it taught me something, because up until that point, all of my relationships had been problematic at best. And I felt, either unattracted to them or disempowered. And I started to think there was something wrong with me, that I really just wasn't capable of having a relationship. And then she came along, and all of a sudden I became, the knight in shining armor that would swoop down out of nowhere and do everything and do all kinds of things I wasn't willing to do before. So Anyway, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's what I hear. What I hear in that question is that he's not stimulating you to respond to his masculinity, and you're not going to give that to him unless he wants to get that from himself. So, got to either accept him as he is, or you got to move on and find somebody who can give you what you want. In the meantime, you can still empower yourself with the feminine. And this has happened before, where I've heard women complaining about their man, and once they've empowered themselves, then they'd say, "Oh my God, he is everything I want. I was just afraid." So maybe that's what's going on. But in any case, you need to empower yourself with the feminine. The whole breath is the way to do that. And then you'll be able to either stimulate him to respond to you, or stimulate you in the way that you want, and or you'll have the power to go find what it is you really want. So I'm going to take a short break here, and I want to come back to some more questions. But give me a couple minutes. I'll be right back. Oh, hang on. Okay, I am back. Let's see what other questions we have before I go on. Skyclad Faye question. When I'm single, I struggle to flirt or get a man. But when I'm with someone, I get guys thinking I'm flirting with them, or they approach me. Am I unconsciously doing this? It would seem so. Just off the top of my head, it sounds like there's some unconscious anger towards men in general. There seems to be some unconscious fear about intimacy, because if when you're single, you have difficulty flirting with men and getting their attention, but once you have a guy, then men think that you're available. Then it sounds like on an unconscious level you are throwing out, yeah. So it makes me want to ask you all kinds of questions about intimacy and commitment. Listen, back when, before I was celibate, as I said, my experience was that women drained you of energy. That was my experience. And if you were to talk to me back then, I would tell you, and I would be able to tell you very eloquently how the masculine and the feminine work and why the feminine steals energy from the male. And I would have been telling the truth, but it would only have been half of the truth, because I had never experienced the full interplay of the masculine and the feminine in the physical realm. Which is why I love doing the practice that I did and why I was celibate for so long, because and again, if you want that, go to qigong.thunderwizard.com. That was taken off of that energy practice. So much energy to be had. Now that I'm single again, I've toyed with the idea of, should I be a single monk again? And because I know I could build up a lot of power. But the truth is that I have fun in relationships. I really enjoy, to really be truly loved and nurtured by somebody who is nurturing and loving you out of their abundance is nothing like it in the world. Nothing like it. So, I think if I get older, in another 20 years, if I'm single in another 20 years, I might become celibate again. Just because it gets harder and harder to find, young, hot women who want to date an older guy. But not that there aren't hot, seriously empowering older women as well. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. Let's see if there are any other questions here. I don't see any other questions. I don't know how much more I have to say. Let me take a look at our list here and see if there's anything I haven't covered. I wanted to talk about safety and protection, but I'm not feeling enthused about those subjects now. I think I'm sort of getting that. The thing is that if we want to take again the physical act, what ends up happening physically is that the man is surrounded, and not only the actual physical, between the sexual organs, he is surrounded, but energetically, what happens is that, and I don't know how big it gets, but I think the last, say 10 feet. Did somebody say 10 feet? That what happens is that when a man and a woman's aura intermingle through the act of lovemaking, her energy surrounds him like 10 feet. Surrounds both of them to like 10 feet. So he really is seeking to go into the power of the feminine and be surrounded. When a man is making love from a place of love, regardless of what position or whatever you guys are doing, his energetic desire is to seek the refuge and the safety of the mother, to be completely surrounded by that Shakti energy. And he is giving, he is inseminating, he is giving his energy to her, but he's doing that because he wants that payback to come back to him in terms of her protection. And when he goes off into the world, it's her power that protects him. Because what is that power that she gives him? She gives him that power of self-love and confidence, and all of that. He feels like he's bulletproof. And what happens with a guy who feels insecure and disempowered and all that kind of stuff is that then he's weak and he's easily overthrown and destroyed. Which is why think in terms of the past, in ancient times, it would be unthinkable to have a king who was single, who didn't have a queen. And yet, there have been queens that had no king. And we have the most popular, well-known two. We have Queen Elizabeth, who created there's an era named after her, the Elizabethan era. She was so successful and so powerful, and it was under her that the British Empire really began to flourish. So that tells you something right there. You know, the power of the feminine has that kind of power. You wouldn't hear about that. A man, they would try to get a man married as quickly as possible, and they might be thinking, well, it's because, you know, offspring and you know, and all that stuff. But underneath it, the underlying message is that without the feminine, the masculine is impotent. It can't do anything. What a man is seeking from a woman: power, protection. What else did I say? Nurturing, respect. Respect is obvious. Safety and protection. Okay, so I think I've explained that at least as much as I want to today. I'm going to end with this. Now, what is one of the worst stereotypical things that is said about women? They're manipulative and controlling, right? Well, again, that's that power of the feminine that wants to surround. I talked about women wanting to seduce men, or excuse me, that men want to be seduced by women. And that is because one of the biggest powers of the feminine that has been lost, by far, the biggest power has been the power of what my teacher would call the devious hand, which devious has a negative connotation to it, but you know, men are direct, women are indirect. Women are indirect. And when a woman is fully empowered, she will be able to say something in an indirect way, which will make a man want to think along lines, and then he'll go and do it. I mean, you will be able to control him. You can get him to go do something, and he'll never know that you did it. My girlfriend, when I was the one that I told you about, that I ended up, you know, walking out of the room because, you know, she got all upset and we couldn't talk. She was from Arkansas, and, you know, I've shared this story before, but I'll just give you the saying she gave me. She said, "My mama always told me, if you want a man to do something, you got to make him think it's his idea. You can't do that without your power." And that power is indirect. Now, when that power is not, when you're not in your feminine power, then what ends up happening is you come out saying passive aggressive things. And like I'll give you an example. This isn't passive aggressive, but this typifies it, and this is also in the book How to Keep a Man. I talk about this. Two guys are sitting on the couch, and whatever's going on, and one guy gets up to do something or other, and the guy who's going in to get, let's go get me a beer. Can I get a beer? I'll get you one. Yeah, get me a beer. Oh, hey man, while you're in there, will you empty the trash? All right. Guy goes and empties the trash. Same scenario. Guy and a girl sitting on the couch. He gets up to get a beer. Do you want anything? Yes, get me a beer, or whatever she wants. And she says, "Oh, honey, do you want to take out the trash?" At which point the man goes, "No, I want to watch the movie." At which point she says, "Well, it needs to get taken out." "Well, okay, I'll take it out later." "Well, you're up. You might as well just do it now." And then they fight. And the next thing you know, it's like, holy crap, what is wrong with you, woman? Why are you constantly controlling me and giving me such a hard time? If it was two guys, the guy just simply directly says, "Hey, man, will you take out the trash for me?" "Yeah." Goes and takes it out, doesn't even think about it. This is that indirect thing. Now, and I'm not kidding you. When I was, again, in my 20s, and women would say that to me, that was my response. Do you want to? And I was talking with a woman about this, again, years and years ago. I'm like, why do you talk like that? She says, "Well, you don't want me to tell you what to do." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Why don't you just tell me that you want me to take the trash out and ask me to do it? Ask me. Say, will you please take out the trash for me? And I'll say yes, because then you're a damsel in distress and you want me to save you from the trash monster, I'm happy to do it. But do I want to take out I don't want to take out the trash. What guy wants to take out the trash? He goes, you know what I would love to do, right? I want to take the trash. No, he doesn't want to do that. Here's how it comes across. It comes across sarcastic. Do you want to take the trash out, you lazy piece of crap? But when you ask a woman about that, she says, no, I'm being respectful. I wouldn't impose that. I'm not going to tell you to do something. I'm saying it nicely. I'm saying, do you want to? And that's how they talk to each other. You know, they're getting ready for a party and there's two girls, blah, blah, blah. And, hey, do you want to get the placemats? Okay. A girl knows, do you want to means, will you please? So that's another thing. I haven't been so good at this. I did pretty well with my fiance, but I tried to train him, say, listen, if you want me to do something, ask me and say, will you please? Not, do you want to? Because it just irks, it just pushes me the wrong way. Do I want to? Do you want to put on some antiperspirant? No. Why? Are you telling me I stink? It's a lot easier if she says, honey, can you please put some antiperspirant on? Oh, sorry. So the point is that that's that power, that indirect power, what my teacher would call the devious hand. When a woman is fully empowered with her feminine, she has that ability. That is something we lost. We lost that when we got rid of our ancestral spiritual practices. We lost that when Christianity came in, and it's at that same time that we turned to a male-dominated society, and now women don't have that ability because they're afraid to be seen as being manipulative and conniving and devious and untrustworthy. The truth is that, you know, just like the mother and the Madonna, when the mother is looking at the child, or the Madonna and the child, when the mother is looking at the child, she can see in that child's full capability. And so she reflects that back. This is what a man wants as well. And so women, you can see if you truly love him, and you love him without any selfish, of course that's almost impossible for a human being to be without it, but to the extent that you are able to love him without agenda and without any, selfish weakness on your part, if you're able to see him from your power, you can see his potential. My fiance saw it in me, saw stuff in me that I couldn't see because of my own self-directed negativity. I couldn't see it. Because of her, she was able to show it to me, reflect it back to me. So you do have that power, which means that your man may not know what he's capable of. Now, you can't go up to him with a list and say, here are all the things that you're not doing, which is what a lot of women do because they haven't been taught to be indirect. They've been taught to be like men. Men are direct. You sit down with your boss, he's going to say, okay, here's where you're screwing up. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. This is what I do. You see it in me whenever somebody throws up a question. I get in there and I'm direct and I tell you what I blah, 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 blah. Now, there's nothing wrong with women being direct too, but if we're talking about the stereotypes, that's not the stereotypical power of the feminine. The power of the feminine is magical. And when the feminine is fully empowered in and of itself, she never, ever has to come to the man with a list of all the things that he's not doing. She can talk about what he's capable of, which will be inherent in that will be that what he's capable of is beyond what he's doing, which means You don't have to tell him where he's falling short. You tell him what he's capable of. Let's say you want him to build you, I don't know, you want him to build something. Don't ask me to do that. I'm not one of those guys. But let's say that's what you want from your man. Instead of coming to him and saying, so why don't you build something or other? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, when you build the wall, I'll blah, blah, blah. Ugh, how horrible. You can do, hypothetically speaking, is to start, if this is something he likes, if this is one of his hobbies, he likes to tinker around the house, you can start talking to him about, when you build that something or other, and be honest and tell him how great a job he did, and I can imagine you even doing this, and you know what, if you built a this and you built a that, and you would, oh my God, it would be so amazing. You have so much talent and ability with that. He's going to go, yeah, I could. Would you like that? If I did that for you, would you like it? Oh my God, really? I would love that. Thank you. It was your idea. And now he thinks he's giving you a gift. This is how stupid men are. And they want to find that woman who has that ability to empower him to be his best and make him think it's his idea. And they will love you for it, which is why the pictures, again, except for the first one here, where the guy's happy because he's being pleased. The rest of them, you see, I chose pictures where the woman gives a knowing glance to the camera. Because there he is, he's just immersed in her, and he wants to kiss her and love her, and she's looking at the camera like, yep, that's my man. I got him to do what I want. He thinks he's the best in the world. Maybe she believes it. Okay? All right, so I've kind of walked through all of my stuff. I'm sure I could babble on for many more hours, but I won't. I'll see if there are any more questions. Donna Marie, I stepped on her buttons here. Question. First, she says it's a question, but we'll see if it's a question. No, it isn't a question. All right, but I will deign to respond to your question. Respectfully said, which means that I pissed her off. Your admission, young, hot female, or similar sentiment makes me doubt a woman in her early 50s has a chance finding someone not yet in a nursing home. Is it possible? I guess she was going to ask, is it possible? Of course it is. You've heard me go on and on and on and on and on about the woman I was with. She was 6 months older than me. She would be, when was her birthday? I think we're coming up on what would have been her natal birthday. She would have been 55, like in a few days. And she was the hottest, sexiest, youngest woman. I mean, look at her. I don't know if you can see her. Can you see her? Most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. Kick the crap out of women 30 years younger than me. Makes me want to ask, though. I mean, I will tell you this. If you want me to be real and honest with you, I am 54 years old. I haven't drank. I haven't smoked. I haven't partied. I haven't, done destructive things to my body in 36 years. I haven't been perfect. I was overweight. I mean, I weighed the same as I do now, but I've gained like 25 pounds of muscle since then. So I have enough health and youth in me that if I decide to go make myself look fit, I can do it. And, if I shave this off and I'm in my best condition, there are women that can't tell how old I am. Some think I'm in my 30s and 40s. Some can tell I'm in my 50s, but they don't care. I've been hit on by young women. They didn't know how old I was, and they didn't care. But that's because I've kept myself in physical shape. I'm healthy. Now, I know men my same age who look horrible. And it's because they haven't taken care of themselves. Once you get past a certain age, you know, young people, I'm saying this to young people. Young people, I'm saying this to the youngsters. If you stop that shit now, stop smoking, stop drinking coffee, stop eating donuts all the time, you know, get healthy and treat your body with respect, it'll last a long time. And those are the women who in their 50s look really hot. I went on a coffee date last night with a woman 2 years older than me. She's a yogi and a health fitness, and you can't tell her age. She's hot. I don't know where it's going to go yet, but so, you know, if you're talking about yourself, I don't know you. I don't know your lifestyle. I don't know what you've done, but I do know that both men and women, if they do not treat their bodies with respect, by the time they get to be 40, 45, there comes a point of no return where no matter how hard you try, you can't get that youth back. So that's a reality. There are women my age that I have no interest in because they look like my grandmother. And I don't want to be with my grandmother. I want to be with I want to be attracted to somebody. I want somebody who looks as youthful as I feel. So that's just my take on that. So is it possible? It's absolutely possible. And it's, even though there is that point where it gets more and more difficult as you get older because, you know, the organs do start to break down, it's never too late to start treating yourself with respect. I mean, and getting yourself, so if you want that, if you're saying that because you want to be, want to attract a guy and you want to be hot, then you're saying that you don't feel that way now. I don't know you. I haven't seen your picture, so I have no idea what your health status is. I mean, do something about it. That's the kindest way I can put it. All right, let's see what else. And she says, part 2, is it not possible for an older woman to find an able-bodied spiritual partner? I don't know what you mean by that. Of course it's possible, but what do you mean by able-bodied spiritual partner? Somebody who can walk and can pray? Or somebody who can go hiking and lift weights and make love like an Olympic athlete? What is it you mean by that? Or are we just supposed to accept that we shoot for someone of an age whom we still are the younger to? Well, I don't care about younger or older. My teacher has said, and I've fully found that to be true in my life, is that age, chronological age, is meaningless. And so I've definitely found that to be true. But it means you're going to have to do something on a physical level, and everybody's different. I don't know. There are some people that have real, honest issues that, you know, glandular issues and all kinds of other things that I don't understand because I'm not a doctor. And some people have limitations and disabilities, and some people have injuries and all that kind of stuff. So take that with a grain of salt. But I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt that your question is based on, can you, find what you want? And the answer is yes. But you've got to love yourself enough first. If there's a conflict and you're not in love with yourself and you don't feel good about yourself and you act in such a way where you're, like for instance, this tea I'm drinking is caffeine free. It's got all kinds of rooibos and cinnamon and orange peel, and it's really good for me. So one of my weak points is dark chocolate. I do love my dark chocolate, but they tell me that's healthy for me. Anyway. All right, let's see. Let's see what else. Any more questions here? Crystal Star question. Do you have any advice for a woman who is often talked over during conversation with her partner? Yeah, get another partner. See, if you guys are asking me questions, whether it's a man or a woman, like the guy yesterday wanted to ask me, how do I get my girlfriend to respect my spiritual practice? And I said, if you have to get her to respect you, there's a problem. Either she doesn't have it or you don't have it, and you're not going to be able to manipulate her into getting her. I mean, I'm just coming from me, and maybe it's maybe I'm an egomaniac, but I mean, if a woman doesn't respect me from the get-go, I'm not interested. And I have no interest. If I'm with a woman and she loses respect for me, I'm not interested. I'll move on. I mean, unless she is able to bring out that I've fallen and I've done something to take myself out of my, my path and my integrity and my awareness. But if she doesn't have respect for me, I don't have time for her. I have no interest in her. So how do you, a guy who talks over you in conversation? I don't know. I don't know him, but not knowing enough about him, I mean, is he self-examining? Have you told him? I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that you've told him that you don't like that. So he knows he's just not following through. The thing is that people's character is their character. And part of the reason why you date before you get married is because you are testing to see what the other person's character is. And their character is not a judgment. It just means that's their program. That's what they're fixed to do, and that's what they do. And people don't change their character. They are who they are. I am who I am. I'm very self-centered, and I'm not saying that with any judgment on myself, because that can work out to your benefit. It means I'm never going to be to you what I don't want to be. I'm never going to, pretend to love you when I don't. Or I'm always going to, even if I'm having difficulty, I'm going to go after trying to make the relationship better for my own happiness. So I'm a very self-centered person. I'm very direct. Not everybody is like me, and nor should they be, but that's who I am. And if somebody doesn't want that in the relationship, they shouldn't seek me out. Some people like that. See what I mean? So he's talking over you, and you've already told him you don't like it. It's too late. You're going to have to just accept that about him, or if it's really a problem, I don't believe in people settling. I just don't believe in it. I'm one of those people that even though I love the idea of being in a relationship, I love it. I think it's the most beautiful thing in the existence of the universe, because I've had it. I've had the real thing. But I would much rather be alone and maybe a little bit lonely than be in a bad relationship with somebody that made me feel crappy. Anyway, so I'm not saying you need to break up with whoever you're talking about, but I don't think you're going to change that about that person. Emperor Fieron, you need to ask questions so I know what you're talking about. Is this only for heterosexuals? No. You can apply this, because if there's usually somebody who has the masculine role and the feminine role, so you can apply this to that as well. Let's see. Miguel M. question. Michael, I'm in place in life where I am about to take a big leap in my life. Well, I don't know what that is. You have to tell me what that is. I'm about to take a big leap in my life. I feel like I've been working a lot to make my dream life succeed, and I sometimes feel like everybody's going to die. What is the question? And what is this? I don't know. That is a huge question. There's some major unconscious psychological stuff going on in there, and I can only help you if you were to work with me personally. You need to be working with a teacher. You can't figure that out on your own. I don't know if you're my student or not, but if you are, then you need to book a private session with me and ask me that question, because there's some major shit going on underneath the surface that needs to be dealt with. At the very least, we're talking about you're resisting your own success, and that's normal. take action regardless of how fearful you are. But in terms of really knowing it, I'd have to talk to you about that. Helena Phoenix, question, what's the secret to a great relationship? That is a very general question also. I mean, is there just one? If I were to pick what is the secret to a great relationship, I would say the secret to a great relationship is that you first need to be your best by yourself. If you need somebody to complete your life because you can't stand being alone, you're probably going to get less than, ideal. If you are able to be your best by yourself and live your life in a positively selfish way, meaning you go after what gives you the greatest joy and you're clear on who you are and what you want, then you will be able to attract somebody who will vibrate with you and you will have a great relationship. Other than that, there's all kinds of things about communication and blah, 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 but it's a huge subject, and anyway, I really can't answer that entire question in just a few minutes. So, anyway, that looks like we're out of questions, and I think we're 2.5 hours in, so I think I'm done for the day. So, if you want relationship advice from me, which I do give out all the time, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com. That is the place to go just to get a private session with me. Well, before I go, I'm feeling stimulated to talk about astrology. I always, it's not a slam dunk here. But whenever I'm interested in a woman, I always ask to do her chart because I want to see how we're going to connect. There are a few secrets that you can see, generally speaking, some ways that people can connect well. Now, please don't, it's a huge, 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 huge subject, but there's a few things like how do your moons line up? So if you want, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and you can get a reading from me. And if you want me to take a look at your connection to your partner, I can point out some things. There are some other things that, it gets very complicated. But for one is you want to see where their moon is. Specifically, you want to see how far the man's moon has to go to reach the woman's moon. And then you want to see how far the man's Venus has to go to reach the woman's Venus. And then you want to see if they have in Vedic, not Western, because it'll be different. Then you want to see if their ascendant signs get along well. If you put those three things together, those are some good indications. There are a bunch of other things to look at. So if you want, you can go there, and I'll be happy to do what I can to see if there are things I can do to help you get closer to your partner. If you want to learn my astrology, you can go to Astrology Certification. .thunderwizard.com. No space. Okay. Sun has gone down. I think I'm going to go take a swim because it feels like Hawaii out there. It's really hot. Anyway, that's it. I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you, my friends. May the power of the gods and the ancestors help you find that balance within yourself and within any relationship you're seeking, that balance of yin and yang. I can tell you, when it lines up, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it in the universe. But we have to take responsibility for ourselves. We have to balance ourselves first before we're going to be able to find it in another person. So, all right, that's it for me. I look forward to our next encounters, my friends.